You're standing on the tee. You make the same swing you've made for 50 years. The ball climbs, hangs, and drops 25 yards short of where it used to land, and you blame your age. Here's what I found. It isn't your age. It's the shaft in your hands, a stiff shaft that your swing can no longer bend, so half your power never reaches the ball. That's the conclusion I landed on after months of digging, and I fought it the whole way. Because I asked one simple question that wouldn't let me go. Why do so many good players over 70 suddenly lose distance overnight, even the ones who still swing smooth and clean? The answer was buried under decades of marketing, and almost nobody talks about it straight. I'm going to walk you through the whole case, clue by clue, all the way to a single page I found in a 2005 club-making book that changed how I see every club in the bag. And here's the part I want you to hear before anything else. You can test this yourself this weekend on your own range with the exact clubs you already own. No purchase, no fitting appointment, nothing. Let me show you what I mean. The first thing I had to get past was a belief I held for most of my life. I believed that stiffer shafts were simply better. That the good players, the low handicappers, the pros, they all played stiff, so stiff must be the mark of a serious golfer. I thought a softer shaft was something you settled for, a little embarrassing, a quiet admission that you'd lost a step. I was completely wrong, and the physics of it is almost insulting once you see it. A golf shaft is not a rigid stick. It's a spring. When you swing down, the shaft bends backward, loading up energy like a drawn bow. Then, at the bottom, it unloads and whips the club head forward, adding speed to the ball at the exact moment of impact. That whip is free distance. You don't work for it. The shaft gives it to you, but only if your swing is strong enough to bend it in the first place. And that's the whole trap. A stiff shaft needs a fast, forceful swing to load properly. If your swing speed is dropped even a little, that stiff shaft never bends. It just sits there, rigid, dead in your hands. You get no whip, no kick, no free speed. You're swinging a broomstick and wondering where your game went. I didn't want to believe swing speed mattered that much. So I went looking for the numbers, and the numbers stopped me cold. The average male golfer swings the driver somewhere around 93 miles per hour, but swing speed doesn't hold steady as you age. By your 60s, it commonly falls into the mid-80s. By your 70s, plenty of healthy, active golfers are swinging in the mid to high 70s, and they have no idea because it happens slowly, a fraction of a mile per hour each season. Now here's the piece that made me sit up. Every single mile per hour of clubhead speed is worth roughly 2.5 to 3 yards of distance. Do that math with me. If you've quietly lost 10 miles per hour of swing speed over 15 years, that's 25 to 30 yards gone before we even talk about the shaft. But it gets worse, and this is where the shaft turns from innocent bystander into the actual thief. A stiff shaft is built for a swing of roughly 95 to 105 miles per hour. A regular shaft is built for about 85 to 95. A senior flex, sometimes marked with the letter A, is built for about 75 to 85, so a 72-year-old man swinging 78 miles per hour with a stiff shaft isn't just a little overshafted. He's 2 full categories too stiff. He's fighting his own equipment on every swing, so the shaft steals distance twice, once because it never loads and gives back that whip, and again because, being too stiff, it delivers the club face lower and more closed at impact, killing your launch angle, and slower swings need a higher launch, not a lower one, to carry the ball. 2 thefts, same guilty shaft. That was clue number 1. Understanding it felt good, but it opened a much bigger question, and this is the one that turned my curiosity into something closer to obsession. If the physics is this obvious, if it's just a spring that needs to bend, then why is nearly every senior golfer I know still playing a shaft that's far too stiff for him? Somebody had to have taught us to do that. Somebody had to have made stiff feel like the right choice. So I started pulling on that thread. Therefore, I went back to the beginning to figure out where the whole idea of flex even came from and who profited from us getting it wrong. For centuries, golfers played with hickory shafts. Wood. Every one of them slightly different, because wood is a living material with its own grain and its own natural whip. A good player learned the feel of his own sticks. There was no letter stamped on the side telling you what you were allowed to swing. You just found what worked. Then in 1924, the United States Golf Association legalized steel shafts and everything changed. Steel was consistent, steel could be mass-produced, and steel could be sorted, made in different stiffnesses and labeled so a factory could tell you which one to buy. Companies like True Temper built empires on that idea. The letters we still use today, L for ladies, A for amateur or senior, R for regular, S for stiff, X for extra stiff, grew out of that factory sorting. And here's the first thing that started to smell wrong to me. Those letters were never a scientific standard. There is no governing body, even now, that says a stiff shaft must measure a specific stiffness. None. I checked this more than once because I couldn't believe it. One company's regular can be stiffer than another company's stiff. The letters are marketing, not measurement. They always were. Then came the early 1970s, and graphite arrived. Lighter than steel, graphite let manufacturers build shafts that were dramatically lighter overall, which let players swing faster with less effort. This should have been the greatest gift a slowing golfer ever received. Lighter club, faster swing, easier speed, more distance. It was tailor-made for the exact person losing yards to age. But watch what happened instead. As graphite let manufacturers offer every flex under the sun, the industry needed a way to sell the stiffer, premium models, and they leaned on something they knew worked on all of us: ego. Stiff got marketed as strong, as manly, as the real player's choice. Regular became the shaft for beginners. Senior flex, the very thing built for a 70-year-old swing, got a quiet, almost shameful reputation. Who wants to walk into the pro shop and ask for the senior club? Who wants to admit it in front of his foursome? That's the moment it clicked for me. Nobody hid this with a lock and key. They hid it with embarrassment. They made the correct choice feel like a surrender. And a proud golfer will lose 25 yards every single round for years rather than pick up a club with the letter A stamped on it. I sat with that for a while, honestly a little angry. Because it means millions of men are paying in distance, in scores, in the slow erosion of the game they love to protect, a feeling that a marketing department planted in them decades ago. But being angry doesn't fix your tee shot. So I asked the next question, the practical one. How would I even know if this is happening to me? How do I catch the thief in the act without spending $300 at a fitting studio? And that's where the trail got genuinely useful. Because I found out you can measure the whole thing yourself at home this week with gear you already have. Now, I know exactly who's listening right now and thinking, this is interesting, but it's not for me. I'm not going to buy a launch monitor. I'm not driving to some studio to have a 25-year-old tell me I swing like my grandfather. This part is for you specifically. I'm going to give you a test that costs nothing, takes 20 minutes, and uses only what's already in your bag. Here's what I did and what I want you to do. Take your 6-iron to the range. Not the driver, the 6-iron, because it's the honest club, the one that tells the truth about your speed without the ego of a driver getting in the way. Warm up like normal. Then hit 10 solid shots, the ones you strike cleanly, and pace off or note your average carry distance. Not your best one, your average. Now here's the reading. If your 6-iron carries around 150 yards or more, your swing still supports a regular flex, maybe stiff. If it carries around 130 to 145, you belong in a regular at most, and quite possibly a senior flex. And if your honest 6-iron carry is under about 130 yards, I'm telling you plainly, you are almost certainly playing shafts that are too stiff for you right now, and they are costing you distance on every full swing. I doubted this test, so I checked it against the launch monitor speed guidelines, and it lines up. Carry distance is just a mirror of club head speed, and club head speed is exactly what determines the flex you need. The 6-iron test is the poor man's launch monitor, and it works. There's a second thing you can do the same afternoon, and it's almost embarrassingly simple. Watch your ball flight with the driver. If your good drives fly low and knuckle down without much carry, if the ball seems to run out of gas in the air rather than climbing and floating, that's the signature of a shaft too stiff to load. A properly matched shaft launches the ball higher and lets it hang, which for a slower swing means more carry and more total distance. Low and dying is the tell. Once you know to look for it, you'll see it on every range. And here's the third move, the cheapest fix of all, and it stunned me how few people try it. Before you spend a dime on new shafts, change your loft. If your driver is set at 9 or 10 degrees and you're swinging under 85 miles per hour, you are launching that ball far too low to carry your best distance. Slower swings need more loft, 12, 13, even 14 degrees to get the ball airborne and keep it there. Most modern drivers have an adjustable hosel. You can turn the loft up yourself with the little wrench that came in the box, sitting in your garage, in about 2 minutes. That single free adjustment has given testers several yards of carry all by itself. Now, that loft trick is one free adjustment, and it works. But it's one of many sitting unused in the bag you already own, and a video only has room for so much. That's why I sat down and wrote it all out properly. 3 books where I take this same investigation much further than I can here, with the ball position check, the wrist release without strain, the retiring of the long iron, and the honest word on launch monitors and gadgets. Everything in them works this weekend with the clubs already in your garage. Nothing to buy, nothing to order, nothing to be sold to you. If what you've heard so far has your attention, scan the QR code right there on your screen, link in the description, pinned comment. The collection is waiting there for you. And listen, because I thought I had the whole thing solved at this point too. So now I had a way to catch the problem and 3 ways to start fixing it without opening my wallet. I felt like I'd cracked the case. The stiff shaft steals your whip, steals your launch, and the letter on the side is marketing that shamed you into keeping it. Simple. But then I hit the thing that unraveled my tidy little answer, because the more I tested, the more I realized flex was only half the story. There was a second, quieter thief riding along with the first, and almost nobody talks about it at all. Wait. Here's what threw me. I'd been treating this as purely a flex problem, stiff versus senior, S versus A. But when I dug into the club making research, I kept running into master club makers saying the same strange thing. That the flex letter matters far less than we think, and the total weight of the club matters far more. And that flipped my whole understanding on its head. Think about it through the spring idea again. A heavier shaft is harder to swing fast. Full stop. Steel shafts run heavier, often over 120 grams. Many graphite shafts run 70, 60, even 50 grams. That difference of 50 or 60 grams doesn't sound like much when you're holding it. But swing it 100 times in a round at speed, and that weight is a tax on every single swing. It slows your club head down, and we already know what slower club head speed costs you, 2.5 to 3 yards per mile per hour. So a slowing golfer clinging to heavy steel shafts is paying the weight tax on top of the stiffness tax. 2 thieves in the same club, working together. That's why some seniors switch to a lighter graphite shaft and suddenly find 5 or 10 yards they thought were gone forever, not because the flex was different, but because they could finally swing the thing faster. And this is where I discovered the detail that genuinely changed how I looked at every club I own. I found it in a book by a master club maker named Tom Wishon called The Search for the Perfect Golf Club, published in 2005. Wishon spent decades measuring shafts and fitting golfers, and he laid out, in plain numbers, something the big manufacturers would never put on a billboard. He showed that when you actually measure shafts on a machine, testing their true stiffness in cycles per minute, what club makers call frequency, the letters are close to meaningless. He documented that a shaft stamped stiff from one company can measure softer than a shaft stamped regular from another. The letters don't line up across brands, don't line up within brands, and sometimes don't even line up between 2 shafts in the same set. There is no enforced standard. There never has been. Read that again, because it's the heart of the whole case. The single label that shames a proud golfer away from the correct club, that S he's so attached to, that A he's so embarrassed by, describes nothing precise at all. It's a letter a factory chose. 2 shafts wearing the same letter can perform completely differently, and 2 shafts that perform identically can wear different letters. We reorganized our entire self-image as golfers around a marketing sticker. Wishon's work pointed to something even more freeing, and this is the part I want to hand you as the real prize of this whole investigation, because it means the fix was never about chasing the right expensive shaft with the right letter. It was about matching the club to your actual swing speed and letting the club do the work it was always designed to do. So here's the finale, the page that closed the case for me, translated into something you can act on this weekend. Instead of trusting the letter, trust your own measured speed and match to it. You already found your speed with the 6-iron carry test. Now use it. If your honest driver swing is under about 85 miles per hour, and if your 6-iron carries under 145 yards, it almost certainly is, you belong in a lighter, softer loading shaft than what's in your bag right now, no matter what pride tells you. Wishon's research says stop reading the letter and start feeling the load. A properly loading shaft will feel like the club head lags and then catches up and snaps through at the bottom. A too stiff shaft feels like you're dragging a dead weight through the ball with no kick at all. You can feel the difference in 3 swings once someone tells you what to feel for. Nobody ever tells you. And here's the weekend test that ties the entire thing together, drawn straight from how club makers actually evaluate load. Go to the range with your driver and a friend's driver, or a demo, or an old club from the garage that you know is softer or lighter than yours. Hit 5 balls with each, back to back, and don't watch the distance. Watch and feel the strike. Feel which one whips and which one drags. Watch which ball climbs and floats and which one flies low and dies. Your body knows the answer instantly, even when your ego doesn't. Most seniors who do this honest side by side are shocked the softer, lighter club, the one they'd have been embarrassed to buy, launches higher, feels livelier, and carries farther. Every time. That's the buried truth, kept alive by club makers while the marketing buried it. The flex letter was never the point. The load was the point. Match the club to the swing you have today, not the swing you had at 50 and the 25 yards come home. Think about what really happened here. The knowledge existed, club makers measured it and wrote it down in plain numbers back in 2005 and long before. It got pushed aside, not by a law but by a feeling, by a letter stamped on steel that made the correct choice feel like giving up. A few stubborn craftsmen kept the real answer alive in workshops and technical books that never got the marketing budget. And now, it's yours. You can walk onto a range this weekend, run one honest test, and take back the distance that was quietly taxed out of your game one embarrassed decision at a time. You didn't get slow, you got overshafted. And that is a far, far easier thing to fix. Here's what I really want you to carry away from all of this. That short drive you've been apologizing for on the tee was never proof that your best golf is behind you. It was a spring that couldn't bend and a letter that lied, and you were never told either one. Getting those yards back isn't nostalgia, it's just correcting a mistake somebody sold you. And if you're the kind of person who's always suspected that the simplest, cheapest answer got buried because there was more money in selling you the complicated one, you're exactly who this whole investigation was for. You were right to be suspicious. You're right more often than they'd like. Now, I want to hear from you, and I want you to actually do this, because I read every one of these. Go do the 6-iron test. I described 10 honest swings, average carry, and come back and tell me the number in the comments. Just the number. I want to see how many of you are carrying under 145 yards and playing a stiff shaft anyway, because I think it's going to be far more of you than the industry would ever admit, and I want us to prove it together in that comment section. If chasing down forgotten practical truths like this one is your idea of time well spent, then join the rest of us, who are quietly recovering the knowledge that got marketed out of our hands one generation at a time. There's a whole group of us here now, and we're just getting started. Because the next thread I'm pulling is about your golf ball specifically, why the premium ball you've been told to play might be costing slower swings, distance, and spin control at the same time, and how a $2 ball outperformed a $50 one in a test I ran that I still can't quite believe. I found the numbers. I'll show you every one of them next time. So the next time you stand on that tee, remember it isn't the years in your swing, it's the letter on your shaft. And now you know how to read it. Before you go, let me tell you where this leads. Inside the Old Ways circle, I take you through the full shaft flex test on your own clubs, right where we left off. And you can ask me your own question about your own bag, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You won't be doing it alone. Old Ways folks like you are already in there. Just point your phone's camera at the code. And cancel any time, one click. Now that you know the right shaft, let's talk drivers. I looked closely at 10 senior drivers, and only 3 truly add distance. Let me show you which ones are worth your money. It's starting right now.